It matters because the history of Mike Tomlin tells us that if you give him anything to work with, he can do some things. He can do some things to at least make you respectable. 18 consecutive years where he's never had a game below 500. That's a testament to him, not just as a coach, but as a motivator, as somebody that's big on accountability and what have you. His teams don't give up. I remember one of my greatest moments watching Mike Tomlin was a year, I forgot which season it was, RC, but they started out 0-4. And I remember when they were walking off the sideline and he was out or walking to the sideline and he walked on the field and he was looking in the eyes of each individual as they were walking off the field to see if they had given up, if they were ready to quit and whatever. And it was a really, really, really defining moment, one of those inspirational moments that you can pull and apply to anything that we're doing in life, because it's about not lying down and not accepting and resigning yourself to failure. When there's still a road to travel to achieve some big things. And I've always admired him for that. But the reality is that the Steelers haven't won a playoff game since 2016. And they've lost, last six, they're one and done in the last 6 consecutive playoff series. I'm thinking about all of these things and I'm saying to myself, okay, you can get some talent. If you get a quarterback, obviously that's going to better position you to compete. And I don't think that's deniable. The flip side to that, however, is that we also have to ask ourselves this question, and I'll give it to both of y'all by simply asking this, albeit rhetorically. When you're middle of the road, isn't that the worst possible thing?
Yeah.
You either compete for a championship or you want to stink so badly that you position yourself to get a high pick so you can get something, you can build from that. So the very, very thing that we applaud Mike Tomlin about and the Steelers organization about over the last decade or so might be the worst thing that we could do, because all you're doing is resigning yourself to the level of mediocrity or slightly above mediocre that we've witnessed, knowing that even though you could end up making the playoffs, you've got a snowball's chance in hell of winning anything.
Yeah, I think, where they are now with Aaron Rodgers, it's like, how much do you think he helps this team? With what you have offensively, we're trying to revamp your run game. Arthur Smith wanting to be run first, then to the play action pass. No George Pickens. What does Aaron Rodgers make you? Does Aaron Rodgers make you a championship contender? Does Aaron Rodgers make you a Super Bowl favorite? As great as Aaron Rodgers is, 4-time MVP, and I say it consistently, the best football player or the best quarterback I've ever played against. And it's not even close. He's only been to the Super Bowl one time. He's had a ton of great years, a ton of great regular seasons, a ton of statistics that have been compiled, but he hasn't gotten to the Super Bowl but one time. And so if you're not going to go win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, why would you bring that into your locker room? If you're going to truly rebuild, then truly rebuild. Allow a young person, allow a Will Howard, allow a Mason Rudolph to be the quarterback of a team that's not going to compete for a championship anyway. And that's not tanking. That's you making a decision to wait on a quarterback that doesn't know whether or not he wants to play football this year. Now you've gotten it to the point where you're in the second phase of OTAs. If you're a team that's about culture, if you're a team that's about family, that's about championships, you don't allow people to hold you hostage. And that's what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing. I think it's far past time that they should have moved on from Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I agree with everything you said, because there's 6 quarterbacks next year coming out of that draft, and if they're bad, they can get one of them. The kid from Penn State, Manning in Texas, Everett from Arizona State's a pretty good player. So there are a lot of quarterbacks, but why would you bring in Metcalf and give him whatever they gave him, $130 million? Whatever it was. Why would you give him that guarantee? Thank you there, Stevie. Why would you do that, give more of that guaranteed money, and it's Mason Rudolph as your quarterback? They obviously think that Rodgers, at the end of the day, is going to go there. Now, the question then is what Ryan just said. Rodgers is past his prime. Yeah. So-so year last year with the Jets at best. And where are they going to go if Rodgers is the quarterback? They're not winning a Super Bowl. Well, they're not going to be the favorite. But you'll be competitive, and you'll be in a playoff hunt. Is that enough for that?
Right, yeah, but you're getting the playoff hunt, dog, and you're in that same place, that 15 to 20 that puts you in a bad spot to get a QB.
I agree with that. I agree with that, but here's where I struggle with it, guys. I'm not as down on Aaron Rodgers as most people are. I know that I am in the minority. I understand that. But he tore his Achilles on the 4th play in his Jets debut. We often hear it's going to take you a legitimate 1.5 to 2 years to fully recover from that Achilles tear. Last year, he had about 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. It wasn't a great year by any stretch of the imagination, but it was still better than anything we saw from the Jets in recent memory from a Jets quarterback. So I'm looking at it from that standpoint, and I understand that he's not what he used to be. Please don't get me wrong. And I know that when he lost back-to-back playoff series at Lambeau Field against San Francisco, I get that, held to 10 points last game in San Francisco. I see all of that. But I'm thinking about what the Steelers had the last 2 years with Big Ben Roethlisberger and what they've had, since. And then I'm also asking myself, well, if y'all feel that way about it, what the hell did you let both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields go? Now, Justin Fields left on his own, went to the Jets. Russell Wilson went to the Giants, but that was after he learned that the Steelers weren't going to really give him what he was looking for. But in the end, you had 2 quarterbacks, and then you have none. And to lose both of them and have a Skylar Thompson and a Mason Rudolph is just unacceptable. So I think that we have to at least say to ourselves, no matter what we think of Aaron Rodgers, we know he's better than what you got. And that's what you have to go with. This is the National Football League, man. I don't think that you can go out there with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson and Will Howard as your quarterback room. I just don't think so.
Makes me think about. You heard Doggy said you signed DK Metcalf, you give him $130 million. Like, he's going to have to get the football. We're talking about who's going to be playing quarterback for this team, and we don't know. It could be Mason Rudolph, it could be Will Howard, it could be Aaron Rodgers. What if this wasn't a personality thing with George Pickens? What if the thing with George Pickens wasn't about whether or not we could tolerate him, whether or not we could deal with him? It was, you go sign DK Metcalf, who does the same thing that George Pickens does. You don't have a quarterback that's going to be able to get the quarterback to both of these players. What if this was a mutual decision between these two entities, the organization and George Pickens, the player, that being here doesn't work for me? In the year that I only had 3 tubs last year, I only had 800 yards, maybe that you don't, or maybe an organization is saying having you on the team doesn't work right now. Let's get something for you. And the Steelers could be putting themselves in place to rebuild. And if you're going to do that, don't do that with Aaron Rodgers.
That's fair, too.
I tend to agree, though, with Stephen A. If you look at Aaron Rodgers' regular season numbers and Josh Allen, who won the MVP's regular season numbers, they ain't that far off at all. Like, literally, I think there's 1 pick here or there. Now, obviously, Josh Allen's team as a whole helped carry him much further than Rodgers and the Jets.
But I'm going to say this respectfully. Shay,
done.
I'm going to say this respectfully. That's why you watch the film, though. Right?
Sure. And a lot of that came in the 4th quarter. I could be
a numbers hunter, but if I'm a numbers hunter, I can't say to myself, okay, he played very well against Jacksonville. He played very well against Miami.
Time. I got all that.
It wasn't even garbage time in those 2 games late in the season. But you got to watch the whole of it. How is he moving?
Minnesota killed him.
Exactly. And so I think it's cool to be able to say that, but games are also played and statistics are also compiled based on the way the game is going. The Buffalo Bills play the game a different way.